Hey students, how you guys doing today? I hope you guys are having a great week. Hope you guys did well on the test last week. I got done test grading them just a bit ago, and some of you guys did better. Some of you guys still had some struggles, and please let me know if you need any help. Today I'm out, since I'm having a great day. I'm out here in my backyard, and decided it was such a nice day I needed to come outside, sit here by my fire pit, and just enjoy the outdoors. Anyways, now some of you wanted to talk a little bit about the exam for a second. Some of you guys I'm noticing the questions that are missed the most are the questions that are often the ones that I cover in my lecture slides and my lecture videos. Now, some of you guys are just looking at the slides and that's it. You never watch the videos. That's better than not looking at the slides at all. But I will promise you that you will not get the same information out of it. The reason is because I discuss a lot of things verbally through the videos that were never covered in those lecture slides, or at least the connections will never be made in those lecture slides. So please, I implore you to watch the videos more. I know some of you guys don't at all, and I know that because of how many views I get from each of these, and I can just see how many people actually watch the videos. Sometimes it makes me sad, and I think, well, maybe I should never do these videos again, but I think it helps enough of you that I'm going to continue to do them. Not watching these videos is kind of like not going to class, and and part of the reason why a lot of people struggle on online classes is they don't put the time forward that is required. They think that for a regular class, and so people will think that an online class should be easier and should also be done so that you don't have to watch lectures like that. Well, the point comes here is that often those connections are made very properly without some kind of looking at the material multiple times, from the reading, maybe from the assignments, and hopefully from these lecture videos. So I implore you to watch them and to do them, and to try to spend as much time as you can going through the material, especially if you're having difficulty with the material. Now this week we're going to be starting on the hydrologic cycle. It's a little bit different than what we've been discussing in past. We're discussing mostly the geosphere, and now we're going to be talking about how the hydrosphere interacts with that geosphere. Okay, and so as part of this, we're going to be talking about the hydrologic cycle. And this week we're going to mostly be focusing on freshwater, and then next week we're going to be mostly focusing on groundwater. However, both of the ideas are very entwined. They're very tied into one another. And so what I'm doing this week is I'm actually doing all the lectures this week and posting them on this week's material. And that's the same thing for the actual reading materials and the objectives. They're all going to be the same for this week, Module 10, and next week, which is Module 11. You will have different discussions. You will have different assignments, but the readings and the lectures are going to be the same, and same with the objectives. Okay, so just realize that there's a difference, but really these lectures are going to be covering the same kind of material because they're so intertwined and connected with one another. It's hard to actually disconnect them. Okay, so just realize that as you go through the videos this week. So, as always, look through the objectives. These objectives are for, like I said, for 2 weeks, for chapters 12 and 13. Realize that I do not ask you to read all of chapter 12. I'm only asking you to read sections 12.1 through 12.3. The rest of the section is about what we call mass wasting, or better termed as a better term is what most of you guys would think of as landslides, but we're not going to be covering that in this class just because we don't have time to cover everything. So we're going to be focusing on the first part, which is called discussion of how landforms change and the hydrologic cycle. That's chapter 12. In chapter 13, we're going to discuss mostly freshwater resources and focusing on streams and groundwater. So for this week, we're going to be focusing most of our time on the discussion of the hydrologic cycle, and then starting the discussion of water use and into streams a little bit. Now, next week, we're going to actually continue on with our discussion to talk about floods, and then we'll talk about how groundwater can impact our surroundings and kind of tie it all together. So don't realize there is these two kind of connections between these things here. Now we're going to also talk about other parts of the hydrologic cycle. For example, we'll talk about the coastal processes, and that will be for Module 12. But it will come up and it will also tie into these ideas. But these two ones, Module 11 and 10, are very similar to one another and tie in very closely. That's why the lecture slides are pretty much the same. So as I suggested, lecture 12, reading 12, remember we're only covering sections 12.1 through 12.3, and then in freshwater, we're going to be covering the whole chapter, but it's split up between 2 different weeks. So lectures, all of our lectures are going to be here. For some reason, the first lecture wouldn't upload to YouTube, so I had to do it through a different avenue. If you guys like this other avenue better, let me know. The only problem is this first avenue doesn't have closed captions, and so I don't usually like to do it because of that. But I usually rather put on posts on YouTube. Now, the closed captions aren't the best, but at least there's something. Okay, so that's our lectures. Now remember that only lecture 1 through I think 5 or 6 is for this week. The rest of them are for next week. Okay, so discussions. This discussion this week, what I'm going to ask you to do is do an assessment of how much water you use every week. So you're just going to go through and have there's a worksheet I'm asking you to fill out that's going to help you to figure out how much water you use on a weekly basis. Now, one of my big research topics, or things that I focus on in my research, is water use, and specifically how we use groundwater. And so a lot of that's for next week, but water use is a big concern for some parts of the country, especially in the western United States. In the eastern United States, it's more of a water quality issue more than it is a water quantity issue, but it's still an issue within our ranks. A lot of you guys don't think about it very much because often when you have your tap, you always have water, but it can be a problem if you don't understand how it works there. Okay, so for the discussion this week, you're going to actually calculate your own activity, how much water you use on a weekly basis. And then in your discussion, you're going to cover 4 different questions. Okay, you're going to actually, which are listed here in our discussion page and should help you with that. Okay, so just look through this, and when you comment on people's posts, make sure that you respond in the ways and to help them to think of ways that which they can minimize their water usage even more than what they're doing right now. Okay, so think about ways that they can try to reduce their water use. As part of one of the questions, they ask you what is the 3 largest sources of water use at your house, and then describe some ways in which you can minimize those water uses. And so what you're going to do when you comment on people's posts is build off that, and so maybe we can have a little bit of a conversation on how we can try to better use water. That's the point for the discussion this week. Now the assignments, there are 2 like always, but this time there's not any online quizzes, which are the online activities, which are the kind of more complicated ones. They're the ones that are usually more in depth. But this time we're going to be doing mostly just reading quizzes. So the first reading quiz on Tuesday will be over the Chapter 12 material, and then the material on Thursday will be over the Chapter 13 material. In Module 11, you'll be doing online activities for both of your activities. So realize that they tend to be a little bit more time-consuming than the reading quizzes. If you have any other questions, please let me know as always, and I'll be glad to assist you and help you in any way. Talk to you guys later.